Hey folks, it's Steve Wilmes and Matt Kieta, and we're here with another episode of the Risk Control Show. And today we're talking about emergency response plans and crazy things that happen, right? Recently we had this plane that crashed into a Southern California building, and you can kind of see the roof here and that kind of stuff. But the small plane took off from an airport in Southern California and ended up in a Fullerton warehouse, right? Our office space
Yeah,
warehouse
yeah.
slash.
It was a furniture upholstery warehouse, and essentially this is one of this is a little municipal airport, so it only has one runway, one heliport. So it's the kind of ones where you've got the private planes flying in and out, and this was a private plane. A father and daughter took off, had immediate issues apparently with the plane because the pilot, who's the father, radioed back to the airport and let them know they needed to make an emergency a return and make an emergency landing, and they failed to reach the airport before they crashed into the roof of this furniture upholstery warehouse, which is adjacent to the air in the area adjacent to the airport.
Right. So, what I think is interesting about this one is all the stuff that we encounter on a routine basis when we're trying to make emergency plans for people.
Mm.
And that is, that'll never happen. And why do
Never,
you got to do
never.
that? It was so funny. I just met with one of our clients, right? And we had this big to do about active shooters and can we cover our windows and this and that. And it, for months and months and months, it appeared that people were being, how would you say it? Overzealous or
Okay.
right, like
Gung,
they were
gung
too
ho.
sent, yeah, gung ho, too sensitive, making stuff up, taking things too far, these types of issues. And so when I finally, I was, met with height and everything else. Um, Normally I'd meet right away, but anyway, the point to all this was it was a big to do, and when it turned what it turned out to be was that just like our planning of scenarios. So let me back this whole story up, Matt, so our viewers can follow along.
Sure thing. Sure
So
thing.
Matt and I we create scenarios and we try to make them real life as much as possible with low impact, especially on students and things like this. So we create scenarios that use the surrounding area as part of the problem. And in this particular type of instance, there's banks, there's little party places, bars, like places where things can go wrong. And so
Yeah.
part of what we do to make sure that people are situationally aware is when we design the scenario, we say this incident is occurring at such and such a place, and this should trigger the school administration or principal to say, oh, that's close enough to us that we should take some action. We should lock down, or we should bring the kids in, or whatever. So we design these scenarios. We switch them up all the time. This happened here, and this happened at Y, and this type of thing happened. So in this case, um, we said there was a bank robbery and it was around the corner, and the individuals ran from the bank and they were being chased by the police, and they may end up on your campus with guns and whatever. So that fake scenario that we put together turned into a real scenario several months after our training, and the site performed flawlessly. They heard about it, locked everything down, and they were upset because of XYZ. So when we go out and we do these trainings, I've had things like, oh, we have a roadway that cuts through our private property, but it's a real shortcut for the residents of this particular area to utilize, because otherwise they got to go all the way around the whole thing, and it's a 2 mile round trip, and it's problematic. And I
Right.
said, so do you have a plan for hazardous waste spills that may occur on this roadway next to your pool site facilities. And the guy said, "Oh yeah, and I should plan for aliens coming too, right?" And I was like, "I'm not trying to be a jerk here. I'm saying I'm watching this hazardous waste hauler drive down the fucking road
Right.
and
Right.
right by your facilities that you have now opened up to the public to be nice to people, and that's great, but do you have a response plan for when this type of event occurs?
Right.
Because the roadway is not maintained very well, and there's all kinds of stuff going on because it's a private little dirt road that people are driving down.
Yeah.
He gave
There's a non-zero chance
right.
right there of
He,
that
he
happening.
this
So
guy
yeah.
gives me the whole, like I'm some zealot idiot that is going crazy on these stupid emergency plans. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, but I've had other clients where hazardous waste hauling vehicles have gotten into accidents, tipped over, and it's in their parking lot, right? So, so why wouldn't you want to at least address that issue so when it comes up, you know what to do? So another one that we always deal with is airplanes taking off from airports, and what
Yeah.
happens when they fall into your building or onto your grounds or wherever it may be. And people, oh, well, this is the perfect example of that. Have you planned for it? Have we got 2 dead and 18 hurt in a small plane
Yep.
incident, Southern California? And I don't know about you, Matt, but I've been noticing quite a bit of air traffic control and planes and near misses on runways and in the air. And it's like, what is going on? And
Yeah.
the training's not there. The people don't seem to care to do their job very clearly. The inspection
Yeah.
processes don't happen. They take a lot of things for granted. Bottom line is, you got to put this stuff in your emergency plan. You got to plan for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree, Steve. I've seen the same. I maybe it's a. I guess this kind of goes along with the business that we're in. My news feeds get filled with these sorts of incidents because of the fact that we look at them, we follow them, we use them as lessons for what not to do in our trainings and whatnot. But it does feel like there's an increase in these. People are in a rush. They don't want to do the inspections. They don't want to handle this properly. So they don't have that in place, and these incidents are increasing. Like you said, there's a lot more pressure, and maybe people who aren't ready to do the job of an air traffic controller or of a pilot are being pressed into these roles before they're truly ready. So it just leads to more of these incidents. In my opinion, if you are responsible for the safety of a jurisdiction, whether that's a school or a city or whatever, you have to allow for even these smaller contingencies, especially when you consider that they're rising. The number of these appear to be rising. I should say I don't have numbers to back that up, so I don't want, but they appear to be rising, at least from my perspective.
Oh, nonstop. They're rising, rising, rising. It could be certain different types of effects that are happening, like more media coverage, so we get frequently
True,
things like this.
true.
I mean, go to active shooters and go back to 1800s, and there's documented evidence of that occurring back then. We act like it's just a new phenomenon. It's not. It's been
Right.
happening for a long time. It's just, hey, we didn't hear about everything, and maybe local events didn't get documented and preserved as well as some of these more modern events with all the coverage and
Right.
reposts and things like this. But
They were
I,
just in a local newspaper. It's in a dusty room somewhere in an old building in Midtown, right?
yeah, that
So,
burned down in the entire city fire, right?
right.
But the lesson to be learned from this event of the plane crashing into the building is you have to look at all hazards. And if you're near an airport, you're near a railroad crossing, You have certain types of businesses in the nearby area that are likely to uh, have escalation or robberies or those types of things. They have to be factored in. You just, even looking at active shooters, a lot of times we think, okay, that's going to be someone that intends to do harm to this particular business. But if you have a bank robbery or some other type of situation where things get heated and people have weapons and maybe they have past criminal histories and they can't be caught in their mind, uh, that puts them in a limited response. And if they happen to run onto your school site or run into your business and take a hostage, it can end very badly. And the only
Yeah.
reason that they're inside your building is because they're running from the police and you're unlocked and easy accessible and on the route. I mean, I just did a
Right.
penetration test yesterday of a facility. I walked in, I was in there 35 minutes. I didn't even try to hide myself. I was out in the open, Matt, and
Yeah.
people didn't say anything. I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It is.
And they
It is. It's
go,
a
we don't want to lock the doors because then people can't get out. Well, that's because you have dual action locking mechanisms on your door and not single action, which is
right.
required for fire exits. So
Right.
why don't you put the single action, then you can lock the damn doors. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it's simple stuff, but people don't want to plan or take the time or do what they need to do, and that causes bigger issues. So don't think, my the whole point of this is, don't overlook these things because they do occur, they do happen. Yes, it may seem far fetched and it may seem unreasonable, but when it happens, it's 100% that it happened. And now you have to deal with the consequences. And you should address those. And DMA 2000, local hazard mitigation plans, it's an all hazard. So you look at everything around you and you try to address
Yeah.
what happens. It's a 1 day exercise if you're a private business to sit down with a group of people. I mean, it could be several hours and just say, hey, what's around us? What are the hazards that we might face? Are we in a flight path? And if
Mhm.
we're in a flight path, that's probable that these things could happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
And that particular area too, those specific businesses, there's a lot of warehouses right there. There's also a Metrolink line that runs through there, Steve. So you can imagine you have a couple big potential transportation related sources of incidents that could occur.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you take that valuable lesson. And if you need help with it, give us a call because we are happy to help you do your emergency plans. And I think we've got another episode that we're going to be doing kind
Yep.
of on another emergency type of issue, but we'll address that as well. Talk to you all soon. Hope you have a great year. It's the start of the year, and welcome back.